So we're calling this meeting to order at 6:01. Can I get someone to make a motion to accept the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Barbara and Brent. Okay. All of those that approve the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Perfect, thank you. Communications with parents, citizens, and staff. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board tonight before we start? Poor Kelly. She looked terrified over here. All right. Okay. Alicia, did you? Okay, wasn't sure. All right, great. And anyone online that want to talk to the board? Nope. Okay. All right, then we are going to move on. Consent agenda. Can someone make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Okay. Yep, Barbara and Jessica. All those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstaining? Okay, thank you for that. No one did. Kevin is not here yet, no. He's the only one I think we're missing. If you want to pass that down, Paul. Thank you. All right, moving on. Monitoring report 2.2, treatment of staff. That should have been in your packet. There's a motion to approve, or actually accept, 2.2 monitoring report?
I move we approve the 2 point.
Accept?
Yep.
All right, that's Barbara. Is there a second?
I second.
We'll let
Either
Brent
way.
take it this time. We'll give it to you the next time.
Okay.
All right, is there any discussion regarding monitoring report 2.2, treatment of staff? Hearing none, all of those that accept the monitoring report 2.2, treatment of staff, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstaining? Okay, approves unanimously. All right, let's see. Oh, there was one there. I didn't see it. All right, board monitoring report. Our monitoring report 3.4, which is monitoring the superintendent performance. That should have been in your packet from before. I did not print it off, so. Other than changing the dates, is there anything we need to do, change it, or anyone have questions? Hearing none, we'll move on then. So I will just change the dates. We don't need a motion to approve that. Okay, community linkage. The Vermont AOE Listen and Learn Tour. Did you want to talk about that?
Yes, we were very fortunate to host a student listen and learn tour here at OV today. I think there was about 7 or 8 students who participated with Up for Learning here in the library, and they were able to provide information to the Agency of Education on what they see is valuable, not only within our district, but what they hope the future of education will be for the state of Vermont. The AOE and the interim secretary will have one more, that's in my announcements later on as well. There will be one more virtual option for people from across the state to participate, and I will be able to share that date as soon as they release the, I believe it's Microsoft Teams information. I'll share that with everybody. It was asked during the OV faculty meeting today to see if I can request to have one done here, and so I will send off that email tomorrow morning, if not tonight, to see if we can get the interim secretary and the other members of her staff here for an event.
Great. Any questions for Renee? Okay. Moving on. I think we're just trying to hum to get to that budget. So we are at board member recruitment. On the agenda, you will see all of those people who have terms up. That includes Lauren for Brandon, Leslie for Leicester, Brett, for Pittsford, Jessica for Pittsford, me for Sudbury. We're still looking for that elusive Whiting representative. Barbara's term is up as an at-large, and Greg, your term is, you have to rerun for your seat since we put you in as a, since we voted you on. So, those documents that you need if you are rerunning for your seat should have been emailed to you, or they are available from Melinda or your local town clerk's office. They are due, I believe it's like the third week of January. And depending on which seat you're running for, will determine the number of signatures that you need to get. I know I need like 4. But the at-large people need 60. And all of the other towns are representative. I'm not sure how many Pittsford needs.
Like 22 or
20.
3, I don't know.
Okay.
Well, 30 for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, or it's a
Or
percentage.
the
of-
1%.
Yeah, which is
Okay.
like 22.
All right. So, and I would assume Brandon's a little bit more than that. So, please get those in. If you're not rerunning, let us know so maybe we can put it out there that we're looking for candidates. And as always, other candidates are more than willing to, if you're willing to serve, please run. Let's see. The OVUU annual board report. I know why that she put that on there. That's not, so, every year I write a report, on behalf of the board for the
5
annual
minutes, I'm
report.
gonna bring you back, Bob. Yes, in 5 minutes.
I think I'm in trouble. Anyway,
Ask to mute, the people online should mute
yes,
their mics.
we're working
please.
on it. Yep. So I need to write the annual board report. I usually ask you guys what you want me to put in there as far as what we've accomplished, what we are setting out to do, and what you want me to convey to our taxpayers and everyone else. So, doesn't need to be done tonight. I will put it on the next agenda. But please come with thoughts and ideas of what you'd like me to put into that letter. Okay? Okay. Let's see, budget communication planning. So, we talked a little bit about budget ambassadors last time. I think I was leaving it up to you whether or not you thought that that would be helpful for getting our budget passed this year. So I put it back on the agenda. Is that something that the board wants to do? It's essentially just having other people that would be here that could answer questions or let us know what the questions are so we can get them answered. So,
I'll see why not.
Yeah, I think it'll be helpful.
all right. So we will put in here that we are looking for budget ambassadors and what that job would entail. All right, and then board members at the superintendent budget talks. I believe, is that list public, or I think you sent it out where you're going and where you are, different places.
Yeah, those are, they've come to an end, so now that,
Okay.
after a new wave will have to be developed now that we're having the December meetings.
Okay,
So not only will I be out in the community again, but I want to host office hours after school so that teachers and others from the campuses who maybe were not able to attend events can chat there.
right, and then board members can join you if they so want. Okay. So that list will go out at some point when Renee has figured out what his, what that looks like, and then if anybody can join him at an event to talk to the public, I encourage you to do so. Okay? All right. We made it. First budget draft of the season. Hi, Brenda.
Hi.
You have a budget for us?
Very.
Okay.
So I did make copies, but probably not enough for everyone. I want to remind you that we're early, and there's a lot of things that we still don't know, and that we can't really quite put into context yet. And it will start to kind of come in fast and furious in the next couple of weeks. I think probably the first thing everyone's going to go to is what the percentage increase is, so I thought I'd start with telling you that. instead of having nobody listen to me while they try to look it up or calculate it themselves. And that is, no, drum roll,
We're still afraid.
4.14%. So you'll remember the kind of status quo level service budget was higher at 6.56, and this is 4.16, 4.14. When we get to the slides, I'll have the real number. So this is a lot of a conversation because there's a lot of things in this budget that we wanted to explain, and a lot of things that were a little bit unique this year that are a little bit more unknown than usual. Thank you, Renee. So again, these are the things that we always focus on when we're meeting with principals, when we're meeting as a central office cabinet team, and when we're talking about what we need to do and where we need to make our investments. Again, just the reminder, I will tell you that we are up to here, the tax letter, it came out today. And honestly, other than it saying the average increase will be 5.9%, there's nothing in there that's actionable yet. They also did tell us what the yield was, and they said, by the way, we're giving you last year's yield, and they're not comparable. So that doesn't really help you. We'll move on forward through the rest of December. One thing that did come in this letter, which was new this year, was very preliminary CLAs. And they usually come around Christmas time. We'll talk a little bit more about it as we go through it. But it's good to have that sort of benchmark now. I'm glad Fernanda's not here because Goshen looks bad.
She is here, she's online. Sorry,
I know,
was here
but
to
she
say that.
can't hit me. So just to let you know, a couple of things that will still be coming in the next week or so. Rutland Northeast will work again on their budget and finalize it. And then we'll have really appropriate, hopefully, numbers and early tax rates that are fairly close by your next meeting. Oh, one other thing. Okay, this is the same thing. No, thanks. Go ahead, Renee. We still have not yet received the average daily membership or the long-term weighted average ADM. So that means we haven't been able to do the verifications that I feel comfortable doing and want to do because I usually find some errors. So that's causing me some more anxiety than usual. So that long-term weighted average ADM, usually by this time we've had some preliminary reviews of it. We haven't seen anything. So just to remind you of what CPI has been doing, this isn't new from the last time we met, but you know, we had that spike following COVID, and now we've kind of settled back down. And August 2004 to August 2023 was a 2.53% increase. So we're kind of coming back down to more normal levels. So here's the bottom line. So the voter approved budget this year is that 26.8 million. That was after the second revote, so the third time's a charm. The status quo budget that we talked about at the last meeting, and that would be just aging everybody, every person that is currently employed up based on additional years of service, as well as the increase in health insurance, resulted in a 28.59% budget increase. And this budget's a lot more fine-tuned. So this budget is actually looking at people who have notified that they're going to move over, people who have changed their health insurance. All of those things have been incorporated, and we are looking at a 4.14% increase. So here's what we took from the October meeting. the board said optimize class sizes, maintain programs, sometimes an oxymoron, focus on direct services to students, and to review and consider Rutland Northeast budgets. So this is what we did. We offered an early incentive so that we could really capitalize on attrition. So we kind of embraced the attrition is your friend. And to date, we have 5 people who have accepted. It is still open until the end of this week, so that information will come to you as to who in the next week or the next board meeting. We looked at all of the current open positions.
So there's a couple people online that are not muted. Could you please make sure that you're muted, please? Thank you. All right, go ahead, Brenda, sorry.
That's okay. We considered all open positions. You've heard us talk about how difficult it has been to fill the positions, and it's no surprise that we have a labor shortage in Vermont. So we looked at each of those positions, again, realizing that attrition is our friend, and that's the best way to make any reductions. And then the Rutland Northeast budget. So the initial budget was 6.4%. They met like a week ago, week and a half ago.
2 weeks ago.
Right before Thanksgiving. We did the same thing. We considered open positions and we eliminated them when possible. Some can't be eliminated because they're IEP positions that are an entitlement, so we're still working to try to find those. The initial draft had no increases in staffing at the central office. And the initial draft had no shifts from grant funds to the local budget. So in other words, if positions were previously grant funded and we don't have the grants for them, we didn't shift any costs into the central office budget or into the assessments. Preschool. This was probably our biggest challenge this year. With the change and the elimination of the boundary, we have less reliable information about how many students we really have and how many programs we should build to do what you asked us, which was optimize class sizes. So with Sarah's help, she surveyed all of our existing students, our existing families, and our preschool teachers helped in knowing the families that might have siblings, and we now still have the survey out kind of for the general public. That survey resulted in 74 families that felt pretty committed to our programs. This didn't surprise us. You may recall we service 113 students right now in 3 and 4-year-olds. And we know that with the elimination of the boundary, families can take the voucher and go somewhere else. And we also know that there is no place that has 113 available sites or available slots. We looked into both the neighbors to Rutland and the neighbors to the south and to the north, Addison, and we saw maybe 5 to 8 open slots. So we built our programs based on 74. We did make some changes, and it did result in a staff reduction of 0.80, which with attrition would reduce a position by 20% instead of one person by the full 8%. And then we added 45 UPK vouchers to the budget. We don't know the rate yet. Right now it's $38.84. I just rounded it up to 4,000. I'm not sure what the rate will be. That hasn't been announced yet. And I'm not sure that there's a better way to come up with that number. We did our best. We do feel we don't like making any of these reduction recommendations, by the way. And we do believe our programs provide a great service to our students and readiness into our schools, both in kindergarten and over the long term. So we are going to be, between now and the next meeting, pulling you some data that shows you or illustrates what our students that attended our programs what their kindergarten readiness looks like for the current kids, and over the time, what the end of third grade looks like. So this is just kind of a grid of what we were thinking in order to do this. So we have 5 classrooms, basically. Barstow would remain unchanged. It would still be a multi-age 3 days a week. Calverley would change to 3 days a week. We would provide first benefit to 4-year-olds, second benefit to 3-year-olds, and depending on numbers, we'd consider whether it's multi-age or straight grade. Oops. Nashabie classroom, 1 classroom would stay as is, so it would have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday 4-year-old program and a Tuesday, Thursday 3-year-old program. And then the other classroom, again, preference to 4-year-olds, and then 3-year-olds. We would have maybe a multi-age and or 4-year-old program 3 days a week. OCA would, based on the current enrollments, would look like it is right now. A Monday, Wednesday, Friday 4-year-old program and a Tuesday, Thursday 3-year-old program. It's important to note that over half of those students are out of district, which means they come in with money and help pay for the cost of that program. So we recognize that, we're accounting for 74 students. Our capacity would allow us to go to about 95. We feel more comfortable around the 90 mark. So we took the 113 and backed into what would be left that would be paid in vouchers. So the way it will work is families have an option to come to our program or an option to take a voucher. If they take a voucher, they have to find another program. They can't take it anywhere. They have to take it to a licensed program, a licensed UPK Universal Preschool program.
Excuse me. Are the Tuesday and Thursday all the 3-year-olds?
No. Some will be multi-age. Probably, believe it or not, they didn't come in nice and clean.
Okay.
So the goal would be, especially at Nashabie, based on poverty, being a higher poverty town, focusing on the 4-year-olds, and if there was space, pulling in 3-year-olds to maximize space. It is very likely that there may be families that find, or there may be overflow and we end up with multi-age in lots of places.
Thank you.
Fernanda has a question.
So that, you said 45, 45 vouchers, right? Is that a hard number, or without boundaries, it would depend on how many people request them?
Yes, that's a guess. That is absolutely
Okay, so that's an estimate, not a hard number, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
And I guess it's actually 40. Because down here it says 40 and then 15 at Barstow, so 55 in total.
And the other numbers don't add up to 40 either, but.
Rounded a little.
Yeah.
So Brenda, if we realized that our capacity was more than the 95 that you're indicating that we could handle based on the staffing, could we open up another day at Nashabie, since it looks like they only have half a program, because you have Tuesday, Thursday, I think you have Tuesday, Thursday there. If we could do that, but we would have to find additional staff.
Right. So
Okay.
one of the things that we heard you say, in addition to optimizing class sizes, is not to tie your hands at budget time.
Sure.
So that if the budget didn't go down, that we did not miss any master agreement requirements for reductions in forces. So if those numbers change, and they will, we will have information, hopefully better information, and you will have the right to recall anyone.
Okay.
If you recall, so first of all, no riffing notices have been made, nor will they, because we still have a retirement incentive out, and we don't know if other people might take it, so we don't want to cause unnecessary stress.
Sure.
And until you adopt a budget and tell us to do this, we wouldn't put this into play.
And this is actually an RNESU issue as well. It is not an OVUU issue.
Correct. It is a Rutland Northeast preschool, the Agency of Education placed in Rutland Northeast hands, and it's a pass-through cost to Otter Valley and Barstow.
Right. Okay.
I have one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
So you said that the OCA writing program takes children from other districts, out of district, and that creates a revenue. Is it possible for Calverley or Barstow to also do the same, or are they school-based programs?
So, yes and no. So the reason why the Whiting program does that is because they have an all-day childcare housed in the same building. We have looked multiple times at trying to emulate that at the south end of our district. We've looked at both having a program at Lothrop as well as Barstow. We've been unsuccessful. In our priority of enrollment, again, hoping to optimize the class sizes, we would have 3 levels. 4-year-olds first, our 4-year-olds first, our 3-year-olds second, and then out-of-district students that might be interested in third. It is possible we would get some from time to time. I think Barstow has had 1 to 4 of them, and Calverley has had 1 to 3, maybe 1 to 2.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Brenda about pre-K? Okay.
Okay, so again, staff changes. The first thing we really did was we considered open positions and/or new positions that were newly filled or are still open, because some are both. And this does have some reductions. So it does have, so what that first line is supposed to tell you is it's a reduction of a para at Neshabie, a part-time para at Leicester, part-time library, a .4 PE teacher at Neshabie, and a high school fax help business reconfigured position. To be honest with you, Michael's here. He might be able to better explain how that was reconfigured with a new hire. And then we also...
Michael is here if you want me to jump in, Brenda.
Oh, hi, Mike, thanks.
Hello. So I think that there should be 2 positions there that are open positions that will be eliminated. There's one that's fax, and then the other one is business.
So that,
And we're reconfiguring our business program to be supported by 1 full-time business teacher and 1 work-based learning coordinator, instead of 2 business teachers and 1 work-based learning coordinator.
thank you, Michael.
I don't have the facts on facts. Could you remind us what the letters stand for?
Family and Consumer Sciences.
Thank you.
You knew it as home ec. Again, a little update on early retirement. That did allow us to reduce 2 class size teachers, 1 at Neshabie. 1 at Neshabie and 1 at Lothrop, based on attrition. And we are recommending reducing 1 at Leicester based on class sizes. You may recall, I didn't throw them in here again, mainly because I ran out of time, but you may recall that there is a class at Leicester of 4 students, 4 incoming kindergarten students. So we know that that's not sustainable.
In regards to that, the 4, they're kindergartners this year?
Currently.
Currently? So, what do we, as board members, or you as administration, have the ability to do around, I mean, obviously that isn't anywhere near close to a class size that we would want, nor is it healthy for 4 kids alone. So, is there the possibility of letting those families pick either Neshabie or Lothrop to move those 4 students?
I would say that there is capacity in both of those schools to do that.
And is that something that the board would decide, or is that something that we would ask you guys to decide?
I would say we'd bring you a recommendation,
Yeah.
maybe 1 or 2, and then you could say, we like one of those, or you could say, go back to the drawing board.
Okay. So can I say that, and everybody agree with me? Bring us some ideas?
Do you, can you vote on it?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, I guess I wasn't asking you, I was asking
Oh, sorry.
everybody here. But I did look at you, so that's my fault.
Fair.
So, does the board have a feeling that maybe we should look into this further? Because I 4 kids in a classroom, my kids, when they were at Sudbury, one of them was in a class size of 4. It's not healthy. They need more. They just need more. I think it's helpful to have more students that they can.
How many first graders are there? You know how many first graders are there?
No, but we can pull that slide back if you want to.
Well, if there's only 4, I mean, you can combine first and kindergarten.
Well, there's that so I guess what I want to say is maybe we so maybe we want to ask. So what I think we want to ask the administration is to look at that situation and see what options we have. Is it, having a multi-age classroom at OCA? Is it allowing the students to move to another school? So I guess I'm willing to make that motion if there is a second.
Are you also including
I second that.
busing in that too?
I'm sorry?
Are you including busing in the?
Oh,
in the-
yeah.
One of the potentials?
Because we've always made sure that there was busing. We don't want to make it hard for kids to get where they need to be. So yes, busing would probably happen. Or it should happen. So, all right, so I heard Fernanda second that. Is there any other discussion regarding that?
Can you repeat the motion?
Can you repeat the
Well,
motion?
what I wrote
Okay.
was, a motion was made by Lori, seconded by Fernanda, to request the central office to review the situation at Leicester to determine options available for appropriate class sizes.
For, do we want to say first grade, or do we want to say the incoming first grader, or are we just saying OCA?
That is kindergartner.
Right, well, they're current kindergartners.
or
They'd be first
kindergartners.
grade next year.
I think we should leave the administration the flexibility to come up
Okay.
with.
All right,
Yeah,
yeah,
I guess for now,
okay.
this is a slippery slope.
All right, let's see what they come up with. Okay.
That sounds right.
Does that sound okay with everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So, any other questions regarding that, or discussion regarding that motion? So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Looks like it passed unanimously. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So to follow up, Brent, we have reduced 1 teacher at Leicester already in this 4.1% budget, so it would be looking at multi-age classrooms. So then I just kind of wanted to remind you a little bit of what really makes this budget a 4.14% increase. And the biggest thing is the number of personnel we have. The next thing is collective bargaining, which makes sense because our biggest investment is our staff. And currently all of our collective bargaining agreements are in negotiations. So an estimate has been made for a salary increase. Health insurance, I think I shared with you last time that the premiums went up 11.9%. That means our share of health insurance went up 11.9%, and our staff's share of health insurance went up 11.9%. And just to remind you that the legislature while it was up to be negotiated in, for this year and the future years, they put a pause on that until December 31st, 2027, so fiscal year 2028. So 2026, the budget we're building is not going to see any changes or shifts in insurance, and neither will 2027, the year following. Inflation, we talked a little bit about that, how it, before the pandemic, I feel like we all talk about pre and post pandemic, but before the pandemic, we were flirting right around 1 to 5 to 2%. And then after the pandemic, we rose, and then dropped again. It takes a while for salaries to catch up with that because it's kind of always looking backwards. But we did talk about that. Special education, we did receive at least one so far incentive, so we will be relooking at that budget next, over the next couple of weeks for the Rutland Northeast meeting on the 19th or 18th or sometime in the future. Facilities, we always look line by line on facilities, and that is because every year there are services that are going up higher, honestly, than inflation, because people who provide services for us are having the same problem finding staff as we are. So their costs have been going up, and then we take our best guess on fuel and wood pellets and electricity and all of those things about operating our facilities. So those have been considered. And just as an FYI, the fiscal year 25 high school tuition rate is $19,774. That number doesn't really apply to us because we don't share or send any tuition money because we are not a school choice town. Our school choice is students can move, but the money doesn't follow them. A couple of things I should have put on there that I forgot to is I did increase all of the assessments in this 4.1% to the Rutland Northeast 6.4%. Again, that's not final, but without knowing how the long-term weighted averages are going to shift between Barstow and Otter Valley, because we don't have those numbers yet, I can't predict where that's going to land. It generally doesn't shift much, but remember last year was the first year of the new student counting system. So I could be completely surprised.
Can I ask about the tuition rate? I
Yeah.
just have a question. So Barstow sends some of their kids here. We have a tuition rate for them.
Yes.
Because Barstow pays us. So is our tuition rate the 19 or are we below that? And you don't need to answer that tonight, but I was just,
So you are different because
Okay.
you get to announce a tuition, and I will bring you a projection to announce in the next meeting. And that's the tuition that you will charge Barstow, or sometimes we get a student from Rutland Town as well. So we will charge that, and then we true it up at the end based on the actual costs versus the budget costs and the actual number of students that attended versus are anticipated. If we are within 3%, then we're even. But if we're different than 3%, if we've charged too much, we have to refund. And if we charge too little, we can bill it back. That $19,774 number is for private tuitions, like in Barstow's case where they send students to private schools. There isn't a reconciliation process. So it's a flat number. And just to remind you, because this was asked at one of the revote meetings, is if you take our budget and you divide it by our number of children, you get a number much bigger than 19,774. And the reason is because the 19,774 doesn't include a lot of things. It doesn't include special education because the student LEA, where the student resides, is responsible for special education no matter where the child goes. It doesn't include transportation because it's the family's responsibility to get them to transportation. It doesn't include vocational education. So there's a slew of things that it does not include, which is why the number is different than if you just took our number and divided it. Yes,
Barstow's a school choice.
9 through 12.
So if they went to a private school, how much of that, just say that was the number, how much of that would follow the student?
All of it.
All of it,
All of it. Unless the private school charged less, and then it would be the lesser
whatever
of.
it is.
Which they would
And-
not.
No, I was just,
And if the private school charged more, then the parents are responsible
Pick
for
up the
all of the
rest.
rest.
Thank you.
I think there might be one more slide. So we kind of re-looked at this, which were the questions that we asked you in October, and hope that we answered that in this conversation. You know, do we meet your spending needs and priorities? Does it include the class sizes that are within our policies? I will tell you there is still some flexibility. So there is still some excess capacity at both Lothrop and Neshabie. We will provide you some more information about equity quality standards, or EQS. We have excess capacity here too. And that's because it's not designed for small schools, and sometimes you can't chop up the position in order to meet the EQS standards. You know, for example, they might say, we need 2.5 or 2.75 counselors at Otter Valley. Well, we are likely not going to find a 0.75 or a 0.5 counselor, so we have 3. That holds true for nursing in the smaller schools like Lothrop and OCA, although OCA does have a 60% nurse. I hope that we're addressing the facility needs. The proposed spending on staff, salaries and benefits, we can talk more about that if you want an executive session. I know Lori joined a negotiation session last night for any updates. I can't tell you what our cost per pupil is yet because I don't have the denominator yet. But I can tell you that the letter from the state is estimating or assuming that the average cost per pupil will be $14,091. Now remember that we have approximately 1,200 students and 2,100 last year long-term weighted average daily membership. It's that second number, that long-term average weighted daily membership, that is the denominator in the $27 million budget. So I did give you printouts. It is the same budget in 3 different ways. The first one is by school or by site, and it tells you by object or what we buy, salaries, benefits, etc. The second one is overall by function, so that's like a department, regular instruction, facilities, transportation, so on and so forth. And then the last one is, again, overall, how we spend, so not by site, in total, in the aggregate, how much we're spending on increased salaries, benefits, transportation, etc. So obviously, we expect more questions.
Did you want to talk about what that letter showed for the CLA, or is that something for another day?
I will tell you what it showed for the CLA. So you may recall last time I said the new legislation is changing the yield, and they are now giving us what's called a state adjusted yield. And what they're doing is they're calculating what the yield would be under the old rules, and they're adjusting it down by what the common level of appraisal statewide is. And their early projection is that the state as a whole is undervalued by 28%, that they have a common level of appraisal of 72%. So just to remind you what that means, is that means a house that sells for $100,000 is listed for $72,000. So, so that the purpose of them doing that was to Well, I shouldn't speak to the purpose of why they did it, because I don't know.
To confuse us, right? I assume that's the reason.
But I can't speak to what they did or why. But what that means to us is at the end of the day, you'll remember last year we had a 100%. So if you're at 100%, this is your tax rate. And last year it was somewhere around $1.32. Nobody was at $1.32 because nobody was at a common level of appraisal of 100%. So what they're doing instead is they're adjusting that $1.32 to go up by 28%, the amount that on average throughout the state we are underappraised. So they would adjust that $1.32, increasing it 28%. I can't do that in my head. Maybe there's a math teacher who can. But that would be the tax rate. Then they'll have to look at each town's common level of appraisal and say, are you really at 72% or are you at a different number? $1.67, according to my friend over here. And all of our towns, with the exception of Sudbury and Whiting, are at different numbers. Sudbury and Whiting are right around the 72%. So that means what we present as a tax rate, they won't have a very big negative adjustment. Mendon also is at the good place, which is irrelevant for us. The other 4 of our towns are below 72%. So even when we come to that tax rate, they will still have to be adjusted higher based on what they're at versus what the 72 is. And so Brandon, I printed these, but then I left them with my computer on my desk.
This was confusing before, and it's just even more confusing
So
now.
Brandon, our biggest town, is actually at 68% instead of the 72. So the difference between the 68 and 72 will be the amount that the tax rate is increased. I already told my friend online that Goshen was at 58%, which is, you know, breathtaking.
Ouch.
But Goshen is used to that. They don't have a lot of sales. This is preliminary. They might still appeal it. There's a lot that can happen between now and then. Leicester.
Pittsburgh looks pretty bad, too.
Leicester, not much better than Goshen at 60%. So 12% this below this state average. Pittsford, still kind of hurting, 64%. So if I did my math correctly, 8% below the state average. And Sudbury is exactly at 72, and Whiting is at like 73, so it's like 1% above. Yeah, Whiting is at 73. So Leicester will be that number, and Whiting will be
Sudbury.
decreased. Sudbury will be that number, and Whiting will decrease by 1% of that number. But yes, Brett, it does add a whole new layer of a wrinkle to something that is already quite complex.
So it doesn't really help anything. I mean, it helps somebody in Sudbury or in Whiting because it's so close. But for those that are still way below or higher than that, they're not
Doesn't
gonna know what
change
their tax
anything.
rate
The
is.
number doesn't change, just
It
the
doesn't,
math does,
exactly.
right?
Right, exactly.
So now
Only the
you can't do the
math
math
changes.
anymore.
It doesn't help. The only thing it does is it makes, as somebody who worked at the Agency of Education said, it makes CLA not be the boogeyman.
I don't know, I think it still is.
So 72 is now 100.
72 is now 100.
Yep,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
there you go.
okay.
Makes the math easy.
So just to remind you, the warning has been changed by statute as well, and we will now report the total budget like we always have, and we will report what the education spending per long-term weighted average ADM is, and how much that increased over last year's. So that will help people kind of contextualize how much what does $27 million really mean when it comes down to the taxes?
And so next time, in 2 weeks, will you be able to show us projected enrollment and all of that, and how each school will be? I mean, I know you've kind of given it to us, but sometimes it's easier to see it in each kind of facility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It won't change from the meeting in October, when we met with Dr.
Grip.
And, but we'll show you where the class sizes will be, where the proposed class sizes.
Yep.
And where the cuts will be.
Yes.
Yep. Questions for Brenda at this point?
Well, I have something to say to Brenda. Thank you. But I also want to, because we got members of the public here and some teachers, I want to point out what the board already knows. We're asking Brenda specifically and the administration generally to do an impossible thing. If you could go back to that list of priorities.
It's like the third slide.
Sorry, the questions at the end.
Oh,
So you
yes.
just passed it, that one. So does the budget spending meet the district's stated priorities and goals? We want to keep it down. And then we get number 4, are we addressing facility needs? You can't do both. We're trying to say we want a luxury SUV and we want to pay $100 a month for it. And that puts the administration in a bind because you really can't do both. And it's not just facilities, it's on other things. I think number 5 on that list is faculty. We're not really meeting our priorities in that way either. That schools cost a lot of money, and I'm going to use an example, and I'm not picking on this, but it's just handy. If you look at the windows to my right, you can see that the facilities, they need some work, and that's not a high priority, and it shouldn't be a high priority. We have much higher priorities than that, but it's handy because it's in this room. We're asking the administration to do a lot, and it's impossible to do it all, and voters need to be aware of that. Okay, that was it, and no question, but thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question, but not really for Brenda, I guess. Maybe for Brian. Is he on?
Brian Crane?
Yeah.
I believe he was earlier.
And it.
Yeah, I'm on, Brett.
So, can you explain with preschool, our state programs, are they held to the same standards as we would be for special education? Are we going to be setting ourselves up for kids to get missed if we were to go this voucher route?
We are.
So, yeah, and how it works is we can receive a referral in pre-K, so we have to maintain our staffing because we still have to be able to evaluate and provide services for students within our district to students who are eligible. So that's going to be something. This pre-K piece is something I've been watching very closely because it impacts our staffing in terms of special education and services. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Well, we can only provide service if we know, right? And so a 3-year-old coming in may not have been diagnosed, might be their first experience out of the house, right? So that's looking at that piece, that scares me a lot, right? Because those are critical years for getting in front of kids.
Yeah, and I agree that we would see less referrals, but just so you know, we do receive referrals for students who don't attend our programming that are in district. So that does happen, but I think we would see a lot less if we're serving less students. We would have less data to work on and be relying on private daycares and families.
And just to remind you, we still will do Child Find, which puts an ad in the paper and asks anyone with children under preschool age to come in for evaluation and review. But you're right, some might not see that either.
Well, I know that's
thank you for that,
not
Brenda. Because that's a legal piece we have to do. So thank you for mentioning that.
I know that's not our problem to fix here, but we do have representatives that go to the RNESU board, and I think it's important that we at least put that out there.
Okay.
Can I mention something about that?
Sure.
ACSD has had open preschool programming since its beginning, and there is a process for referrals that come from private providers to the school, and a lot of collaboration that happens around them. So I think it's something to address, to make sure that those communications are open, and that you guys have the forms and the mechanisms to make it easy for private providers to request, to make referrals to you to assess whether or not an evaluation is needed. We in ACSD, we collaborate with the Parent-Child Center, and we have, as well as all of the daycares, the preschool programs that are around us, and they know how to access us for evaluations. So I think that as that system changes, there may be some mechanisms for making sure that that communication is clear.
Can I respond really quickly to that?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and we do have systems in place right now, and a lot of private providers do refer to us, and Susan and Sarah Crossman and our evaluation team, Elisa, we have processes in place, but I think that's a really good point, that we're going to need to be prepared to communicate with more providers and have our processes better articulated and ready for this change. So I appreciate that.
Great. Any other questions about this first round of the budget or comments? Okay. Well, I look forward to seeing what you have in 2 weeks. Thank you, Brenda, very much.
Thank you.
All right, RNESU board update. Let's see, what did we do 2 weeks ago? We had a board meeting, and we saw the first budget, our first draft of the budget, which was 6.4% increase from there. Barbara and Kevin, help me out if there's anything that you remember specifically.
I don't. It was a quiet and brief meeting, as I recall.
Yep, it was. So we will be looking at that budget again in December. It's, let's see, today's the 3rd, 14th, 17th. That next meeting will be December 18th, where we will have to finalize that budget in order for it to be ready for the OVUU and Barstow budgets in January. So we will be looking at the pre-K issue at that time, and any other things that may come up between now and then. And we're still looking for a superintendent. So we had our first meeting 2 weeks ago, right after the RNESU budget, and as we have information to tell you, we'll let you know. Let's see. Other business for future consideration. Nope.
I have a comment, I guess.
Okay.
And it's just about when we get the packets kind of truncated and like a couple hours before the meeting and there's additional information, it's pretty tough to be prepared. So I don't know if we can do anything to get that a little bit further out, but
Sometimes it just happens,
it's
unfortunately,
been
but,
happening pretty regularly.
so we'll see what we can do, but, sometimes the information just isn't ready until you get it.
Understood.
So,
I support that statement of more advance notice.
so,
Whatever we can
we
do
can talk
to-
to the administration, but, that's their
Even
stuff.
I understand
day
stuff
is helpful.
happens, but it's been a little more consistent than we would like. So I've been not saying anything for a while, but now I'm going to say something.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I have a comment about the musical, if it's inappropriate.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Well, first I want to commend the performances, the staging, the backstage work, the sets, the energy, the choreography. All of that was great. And the underlying teamwork and confidence building for kids is fantastic. But it was an inappropriate show for family entertainment. I understand arguments about pushing the envelope. I understand arguments about art being challenging. But it wasn't a show I could have brought my mother if she were still living, and it wasn't a show that I would be comfortable bringing a second grader to. I think I would have had to walk out if I had a young child with me. It was way too adult, way too sexual. Jasmine, I want you to know that the optics are bad coming from an older man, but I've been approached by more than one woman saying that they found the costuming offensive and inappropriate for girls who are minors. So I just wanted to express that. There's a ton that goes on with the theater program that's fantastic, but I think the envelope got pushed a little bit too far this year. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else? All right, then superintendent informational report.
Already mentioned the OV students participating in the Listening and Learn. Tour from this morning, the budget survey that we put out for the last couple of weeks. Very happy that we were able to receive 219 responses for the Otter Valley budget and 65 responses for Barstow, but so we'll be able to share that information at an upcoming board meeting.
Oh, wow, that looks really good.
Excuse me, can we, anybody who's not muted, can you please mute your?
I need to set the children's table. Oh, when today? It's tomorrow. Oh. Please. I'm sorry.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Let's see. And, let's see.
Somebody text her, right?
Oh, and the University of Vermont has created a Vermont Rural Education Association Advisory Board, and superintendents and other educators from around the state have been invited to participate, and I have been asked to be one of the original members. So
Cool.
I'm excited to be a part of that.
Yay.
Because I think we are one of the only states in the country that does not have a rural educator association attached to it. So it's great that one is starting.
Awesome. Okay, so our next board meeting is Tuesday, December 17th here at 6 o'clock. We should be seeing another budget update, and we will be talking about other stuff, I'm sure. Do we need a negotiation executive session? I don't think so. Not at this time.
Not really yet.
All right, we haven't done anything yet. Okay. All right, well then I would accept a motion to adjourn at 7:04.
So moved.
Barbara? Okay. Thank you.